In 2005, Japanese game studio Team Ico released Shadow of the Colossus, a game that would go on to define a generation, and is still revered as one of the best games ever created. It has gone on to receive critical acclaim, and is one of the prime examples of video games being an art form, as it takes players on a journey of love, fearlessness, and self-sacrifice, all the while containing the underlying ideas of misplaced trust, preconceptions of the unknown, and the consequences of blindly following the words of others. The vast empty landscapes, the little to no interactions with anyone besides the Colossi, and the separations from any form of civilization, creates a feeling of isolation and an overall depressing tone that is even more enforced as the events of the story unfold. This is all done in an attempt to have the player question their actions and wonder who the real villain is. Now, to answer this, we must go through the game and analyze its meanings, both obvious and concealed. And with that, let's begin. The opening cutscene begins as it shows our protagonist, a young man named Wander, entering a large temple in a place simply known as the Forbidden Lands, with no knowledge of what roams here. With him is a young mistress named Mono, who has been killed for reasons unknown. They are there in search of Dorman, a supposed godlike entity with the power to resurrect the dead, in hopes of returning Mono back to life. Now, after getting the being's attention, Dorman does say that he can resurrect Mono, but only if Wander is willing to search the Forbidden Lands and hunt down 16 Colossi, for once again, reasons unknown. And even after Dorman warns him that the repercussions for these actions will be great, Wander quickly agrees and sets out with his horse Agro to hunt down these monsters. This opening introduces us the world, the characters, and the objective, but as vaguely as possible. You might have realized there was one word that I kept bringing up: unknown. And if there is one word that seems to be the most important in the mind of the developers, it is this one. We are never informed of where the Forbidden Lands exactly are. We have no idea why we must hunt these Colossi or what they are. Heck, the only reason we know the protagonist's name is Wander is because the Japanese version of the game is entitled Wander and the Colossus. His name is never mentioned in the game. Now, the only thing that we know for sure is the existence of Dorman, and even then we don't even know if he has the ability to revive Mono. He could be lying. However, even though we may not trust Dorman, he is our only quote-unquote companion throughout the game besides Agro. So he becomes one of the few things that is recognizable to the player, the one person you'll always return to after a battle. And in a world where you know literally nothing else, you're gonna have to take what you can get. Now, this relationship with Dorman and his larger effect on the story comes in later on, so for now let's pick up with Wander as he hunts down his first Colossus. As you climb a rocky cliffside, the first boss makes its presence known, as the creature that seems both organic and man-made passes you, and it continues to simply walk along, not paying any attention to the character. So your first instinct is to charge the creature, as background music begins to kick in, and it's this music that truly tells this game's story. That initial interaction with Dorman is the only conversation between two characters until the end of the game. So this music that is heard during and after boss fights, and even when exploring the world, helps us understand the emotions and the thoughts of our character. Whether it be a battle song filled with pure adrenaline, or a slow, sombering piece that comes after the death of a Colossus. This soundtrack becomes the foundation of the entire experience, and is one of the main reasons this game has become so beloved. Now, the song currently playing is very interesting because, as I said before, it's a song played when you defeat a boss. Now, the first song I played is a logical choice because it makes sense to have such a high-octane song playing during a boss fight. Why would they choose a depressing song after beating a fight when it should be cheerful? This brings up the question if you should actually be hurting these Colossi, and if it's actually worth it to trust Dorman. Again, this is something that persists through the game and will be brought up later, so for now, let's get back to the story. So you climb the first Colossus, you stab it in the head, it dies, and then... okay, so what was that? We don't know. Something that, again, persists throughout the game. But for once, this is actually something that is explained to us later on. And it actually ties back to Dorman, so once again, we have to wait until the end of the game. After that scene, Wander reawakes in the temple, where Dorman instructs him of the next Colossus he must hunt down. After this point, it becomes pretty formulaic. You head out, search for the Colossus, kill the Colossus, reawaken the temple, rinse and repeat. But that question if you should really be killing these Colossi continues to grow in the back of your mind. And even more so after that black mass that you saw come out of the first Colossus and attacked Wander actually comes out of all of them, making you continuously question what that is. We are finally introduced to something new after the death of the 12th Colossus, as a group of soldiers led by Lord Iman seem to be heading towards the temple within the Forbidden Lands. Now from what we can gather, we can assume that Lord Iman is the one who is narrating the opening scene by looking at the mask that he is wearing, but that's the only thing we know about him currently. So you continue to hunt down Colossi, with a feeling of dread becoming more and more apparent as you kill each one of them. But you've come this far already and you still have the goal of resurrecting Mono. So you head out to fight the 16th and final Colossus. As you quickly approach the final boss, you come across a broken bridge, but luckily Aggro is able to make the jump. But it starts collapsing behind you, and then in a blink of an eye, the only real companion that you've had, who has been with you this entire journey, is just gone. Finally finishing that complete feeling of isolation, as it is now just you and the Colossus. It is both an emotional and extremely climactic battle. As the sky darkens, rain falls, and furious winds overtake the battlefield, an extremely emotional battle theme plays, very different from all of the previous fights, and it seems to have more in common with the victory theme than any boss theme. And it's at this moment, with this song playing, that every question that you've had throughout the game comes back all at the same time. If you should trust Dorman, why you're killing these Colossi, if it's worth to kill these Colossi, will he be able to resurrect Mono after killing these mostly unhostile creatures? But you continue your journey and finally kill the last Colossus. And with one last black mass consuming Wander, he goes back to the temple, where Lord Iman is already there. Now this is the point where most things are explained, while there are still a lot of things that are unknown. First, it's revealed what that black mass is. Over the course of the game, the players might have started to realize that Wander is starting to decay physically. This is actually because this blackness that has been attacking him was actually fragments of Dorman, who turns out to be a demonic entity. Now this completely destroys Wander's preconception, because demons are usually associated with darkness and not light, which completely contradicts the fact that he was speaking from a bright light in the ceiling, which is probably why Wander trusted him to begin with. Yes, a dormant soul was separated into the 16 Colossi in order to keep him from resurrecting. Now this just could simply be a plot point for the game, but it actually has a deeper and biblical meaning, and that all comes back to this guy, King Nimrod. It is said in the Bible that when King Nimrod was killed, his body was cut up and dispersed across the earth, very similar to Dorman. It is also said that his wife claimed that after he died, he became the sun god, which once again parallels Dorman's voice coming from a bright light in the ceiling. Now all this could be chalked up to coincidence, a plot point that just so happens to have a connection to a biblical source, until you realize that the name Nimrod backwards is Dorman. And with no other choice, Lord Iman decides to seal away Dorman and Wander within the temple to keep him from destroying the world. This is where you get the last sequence of control over Wander, as you desperately scramble attempting to reach for Mono and escape this vortex. However, it is all for naught. It is impossible to survive this sequence, as Wander, a character that simply wanted to resurrect Mono, is sealed away within the temple, never to be seen again. This whole journey, the loss of your horse, the death of these Colossi, all for nothing. Or was it? Now this could have simply been a very depressing, unfulfilling ending, until you realize Dorman wasn't as evil as you think, as he kept his promise. Mono awakes, your goal is complete, Mono is alive. And guess what? Even Aggro survived somehow. Everyone made it out okay except for Wander, for they did nothing wrong. Mono and Aggro did nothing wrong in this journey. Only you, the one who assisted the demon and killed these innocent colossi, are at fault, which is why you are the only one that gets punished. And finally, as Mono and Agro leave the temple, they find a small baby with horns coming out of its head. Now this part has left many gamers puzzled of the meaning. Could it be Wander? But why would he have horns? But then you realize that in the Bible, Nimrod's wife gave birth to a child, and then claimed it was Nimrod reborn. So a small child with horns coming out of its head could symbolize the rebirth of Dorman in a physical form. The credits roll, and the story is over. This game definitely deserves its reputation as one of the best ever made, let alone the gameplay. But what we are here to mainly talk about is the story. But the symbolism behind the landscape, the colossi themselves, Dorman, the music in the background as it tells the story of how this game unfolds, the foreshadowing that is seen throughout the game, whether it be once again Dorman's name or the very subtle corruption of Wander's body, all of it just comes together as a perfect piece of art and will definitely be played for years to come. Thanks for watching my analysis on Shadow of the Colossus.